of deceit. Telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Thursday, the 5th of February, year of our Lord 2026. Well, who built Bitcoin? I don't mean the code. I mean the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure behind and around it. Well, Epstein's emails are shedding new light on the real people behind Bitcoin. And we're also going to take a look at the Great Taking. These things have been taking shape, planned, practiced for decades, just like the pandemic. Just like, by the way, the police state, the surveillance state that I've been talking about all of this week. Today we're going to take a look at what is behind, really, not just the surface evil that we see with Epstein, but what's behind this and the things that have shocked the world. It is an ancient evil for those who have the eyes to see.
Who was really behind Bitcoin, you would run as fast as you could to sell it. I know 100%. If you knew who owned Bitcoin or who started Bitcoin, you had Bitcoin, you couldn't sleep at night. I know 100%. And when the real founder of Bitcoin comes out, it is my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
One day.
And a microsecond, whoop, like that.
Who is that guy? Well, that's an old clip. It's been around for a while. It's taken on new life and new meaning. That guy is Dan Pena, I think is the way he pronounces his last name. He's got the little squiggly mark over the end. Do you have any better clue, Travis? But I think it's Pena.
Could be Pena.
Pena, okay. Anyway, his background, he was formerly an LA detective, worked with the CIA, worked on Wall Street as an analyst. He worked actually for Bear Stearns. He has co-founded or led many different companies, oil, gas, real estate, entertainment even. And he has Quantum Leap seminars, wealth creation seminars and stuff. He's known for being brash and profane. As you heard, I had to bleep that out a couple of times. It's just that short clip. But he truly is a rags to riches individual. A lot of people call him a fake guru. I'm not talking about that. But when you look at that clip and you put it in the context of what was just released with these Epstein documents, it's pretty amazing, actually. A lot of people were talking about this. I mentioned it yesterday. There was a very long post on Twitter by an individual who went through the relationships of the stuff, and I didn't get finished with it yesterday. I want to pick up with that. But just understand where this thing is coming from. And just to recap what I talked about yesterday.
Real quickly, I want to interject. I'm personally a little skeptical about this guy and what he's saying. Not necessarily that you would run for the hills, but that he knows who it is. Mm-hmm. Simply because he's implying, there's a huge ethical problem with owning Bitcoin because of who runs it. And if you knew, you'd get out. And then he doesn't tell you who it is. So in my estimation, that's a tacit acceptance that he's okay with whoever this is and whatever they do.
Or maybe he doesn't want to get sued for libel, right?
Yeah.
And get into this whole big thing about that. That might be his motivation. Look, I don't necessarily. He's trying to warn people about getting involved in libel lawsuits and that type of thing.
Yes, his advice may still be good, even if I may doubt his credibility.
If it was Jeffrey Epstein, for example, who was behind this, do you think people would run for the exit? Do you think they'd have trouble sleeping at night?
Bitcoin might be the first currency to achieve negative value instantaneously.
Well, this is what...
sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but I saw an interesting video of John McAfee yesterday talking about who he believes the creator of Bitcoin was.
Oh, yeah?
And he pointed out the fact that there's multiple people that were involved, but if you look at the writings of Satoshi and the writings of the people that were involved, there's only 2 people that speak like Satoshi does, using the British spelling of words, and only one of them uses a double spacing like Satoshi does. And I forget what he said the guy's name was. It was like Andrew Beck or Becker, maybe. I forget, but that was...
Adam Back.
Back, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the people that shows up in this thing. And guess what? It's not about the coding, folks. That was what we talked about yesterday. Don't get so caught up in the coding. Oh, well, it's open source, and we can see what's there. So it's all up. It's all above board and fine. It's not about that at all. That's what the post that I was talking about yesterday was really about. And the fact is that you don't understand how this whole thing has been controlled and funneled, and the infrastructure has been controlled, and other cryptos are shut down. This is promoted, and it's those people who are behind it. That's the issue. For example, what's needed for control? It's not the code. It's not the code. Who could have access and the capital to build on it? Which projects get listed on the exchanges like Coinbase? What was the media narrative that was said about it? Who controls the media to pump this or to dump that? What did regulators go after? You know, the corrupt-owned government employees. And which developers got paid? Which academic institutions legitimized it? That's the issue, folks. It's not about the open source code. Doesn't have anything to do with Satoshi Nakamoto or whatever, this character that they created about. Because it's really about, to sum up again, the technical dismissal, the ideological purity test. So only Bitcoin, all the rest of them are junk. The funding starvation for other projects, and then pushing this very hard. And let me say, it might be Epstein at the very epicenter of all this stuff. But guess who is at the epicenter of it now? Trump, the other pedo, the other best friend of Jeffrey Epstein. So again, you had, as I was talking about yesterday, I think I got up to the point where they were talking about the Bitcoin Foundation. And so the Bitcoin Foundation initially was set up, it collapses, goes bankrupt. A handful of developers maintaining Bitcoin Core, the reference implementation that the entire network runs on, suddenly have no funding. They have no salaries, they have no institutional support. So Bitcoin's next protocol upgrades determined whether or not it could scale or whether it would die as a niche experiment. So who steps into that? MIT Media Labs. Who is a big influence and funder of MIT Media Labs? Jeffrey Epstein. 10 days after founding the Digital Currency Initiative, Joi Ito sends Epstein an email titled Digital Currency Initiative. The message explains how MIT recruited key Bitcoin developers after everyone else scrambled to step into the vacuum and take control. Ito's note to Epstein says, FYI used gift funds to underwrite this, which allowed us to move quickly and to win this round. Thank you. They got funding from Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's reply is, Gavin is clever. He donated $525,000, $500,000, to MIT Media Lab Digital Currency Initiative. This funded salaries for Vladimir van der Laan, Gavin Andresen, and Corey Fields. These developers literally decided Bitcoin's technical direction. During the exact period when Bitcoin scaling wars would determine the future. These developers didn't know where the money ultimately came from. It flowed through MIT's normal institutional channels. Plausible deniability for them, strategic positioning for Epstein's network. You know, there's an saying that maybe you've heard before, but the people who control things are controlled by the people. We always talked about this as engineers, right? The people who control things are controlled by the people who control people. And the people who control people are the people who control money. That's the hierarchy. That's why Epstein is important to the Bitcoin story. And so strategic positioning for Epstein's network, and that's where he brings in the Blockstream, the island, and the business trip. So Epstein and Joi Ito co-owned Kiara Investments, 50-50 ownership, even though Ito only put in $2,000 versus Epstein's much larger stake. Chiara invested $500,000 in Blockstream's 2014 seed round. Blockstream was building proprietary Bitcoin infrastructure, sidechains, and the Lightning Network, which is going to make it faster processing transactions, completing layer 1 blockchains that could handle high transaction volumes natively. It was an existential threat to the business models. Suddenly, the bad for the ecosystem email makes perfectly good sense. Email correspondence shows Blockstream executives Austin Hill and Adam Back that you were talking about, Travis, coordinating meetings with Epstein. And it wasn't just Travis who was talking about it. It was John McAfee. So I think that Adam Back is one of the few people that's doing this, including discussions about visiting him in St. Thomas, the island. So Hill says to Epstein, Sunday in New York, I think, is a no-go because of our commitments on the West Coast. But Friday or Saturday on the island are still possible. And so he gives them instructions about going there. January 2015, Hill emails Epstein asking for advice and counsel on a few things, both business, Bitcoin, personal, and esoteric mind games that we play. He adds, my apologies for interrupting in what I'm sure is a crazy media storm for you and your team, referencing the lawsuit that went public about Prince Andrew. They knew. They all knew. They continued to engage with him anyway. Then we get a meeting in August of 2015. The people at the meeting are, again, Joy Ito, Jeffrey Epstein, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Peter Thiel. They all meet to talk about, and it was also Reid Hoffman, who was the one who hosted the dinner. Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn co-founder, Epstein pal at the island, and MIT Media Lab Advisory Council member. So, again, all these people, Thiel, Zuckerberg, Musk, Epstein, Ito, they have a dinner on the West Coast. This wasn't just a social gathering. This was the crypto institutional strategy being discussed at the highest levels of Silicon Valley power. That same year, MIT's Digital Currency Initiative, which was funded by Epstein, is employing Bitcoin's core developers. The same year, Blockstream, funded by Epstein, is building Bitcoin infrastructure. So you have the MIT Digital Currency and you have Blockstream, both of them funded by Epstein. Same year, the narrative against competing blockchains intensifies. And you had Ripple as a good example of this. It was excluded because it was a competitor to what they were doing with Bitcoin. People were surprised when Trump brought Ripple back in because now, he was talking about doing a Bitcoin reserve, and then all of a sudden he brings in these other currencies that were basically set up to be transactional, not to be a commodity. That's the hijacking of Bitcoin so many people have talked about, changing it from a transactional model to a commodity model and getting the Wall Street crooks involved in it. But then Trump started bringing in Ripple again into the Bitcoin reserve talk, which they never, fortunately, did. Larry Summers then. Larry Summers connection. We've had a lot of emails about Larry Summers, and everybody focuses on the rape and pedophile and prostitution stuff, so the human trafficking. But this is how you get Larry Summers involved in this as the wingman of Jeffrey Epstein, as he referred to him. So he called him his wingman. He became a key advisor to the Digital Currency Group. And so he says, if you don't know what the Digital Currency Group controlled, they had Foundry, which was the largest Bitcoin mining pool. That means that they get to determine which cryptocurrencies get mined and which ones are ignored. If they don't mine your cryptocurrency, it's dead in the water. Grayscale, the largest Bitcoin investment vehicle for institutions. CoinDesk, the most influential crypto media outlet. The on-ramp and off-ramp, if you will. That's a Coinbase, actually. But Genesis Trading, major institutional lending desk that controls capital flows. So if you stop and think about this, you control the narrative, you control what gets mined, you have an investment vehicle with money, and you have a major institutional lending desk for loaning money. He says this is vertical integration that would be illegal in traditional finance. You have mining, media, institutional capital, all under one umbrella, all advised by Larry Summers, high in the Obama administration, Treasury Department, who Epstein calls his wingman. And so this is why who wrote the code doesn't really matter. It's who set up the financial and regulatory on-ramps and off-ramps, and who set up blockades for other cryptocurrencies, who steered everybody in towards Bitcoin. Was Jeffrey Epstein right at the center of all of this. And so you had problems at one point in time. You had competition from Ripple because it could do 3 to 5 second transaction settlements versus Bitcoin's settlements that would take more than 10 minutes in many cases. It was a fraction of a penny in fees versus Bitcoin's rising transaction costs, minimal energy consumption versus the tremendous amount of computing power required for Bitcoin, and actual real-world payment use case. They had a lot of institutions that had signed up for Ripple, and they were looking at it as a way to do international fund transfers. From a purely technical standpoint, Ripple was better than Bitcoin. Then December 2020, the SEC sues Ripple, allegations that it is an unregistered security. Despite it existing since 2012, for 8 years, without any action, despite former SEC officials suggesting that Bitcoin and Ethereum weren't securities without addressing others, and the fact that Ripple sought regulatory clarity for years without getting any, all of a sudden they dropped the hammer in 2020, December of 2020. The timing was surgical. The target was deliberate. And who was president in December 2020? Oh, that's right, Trump, yeah. Anyway, Bitcoin ETF applications then started moving forward. And as Tony and I have talked about this many times, and he's going to be on at the bottom of the hour, why would you have an ETF of Bitcoin? I mean, it's already purely digital. Why would you need that? That, to me, has always been a big red flag of some kind of financial shenanigans that are there. Bitcoin characterized as common as a commodity by regulators at that point in time, and no enforcement actions against Bitcoin itself, instead going after transactional competitors. So then remember everybody's astonishment when the Bitcoin reserve had Ripple put in it by Trump. So again, they're playing this thing, pumping and dumping, moving it back and forth. So again, just to remind you of what he had to say.
You knew who was really behind Bitcoin. You would run as fast as you could to sell it. I know. 100%. If you knew who owned Bitcoin or who started Bitcoin, you had Bitcoin, you couldn't sleep at night. I know. 100%. And when the real founder of Bitcoin comes out, it is my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
One day.
In a microsecond, whoop, like that.
Yeah. And as Travis was saying, John McAfee had identified, he says, a couple of people. And that's what people are saying, 2 to 5 people. Always the names that come up are Adam Back, Austin Hill. Crypto bros are now nauseated after realizing Bitcoin itself was funded by Jeffrey Epstein, perhaps founded by him. We have basically funded an elite global pedophile ring since 2015. I feel sick, said one person. Like a hurricane that tears down even the sturdiest storm shelters, the Epstein files have cut a path through a vast swath of America's intellectual, political, and financial elite. The latest tranche of emails related to the sex predator have been particularly devastating. Fans of the left-leaning, not left-leaning, but left-libertarian academic Noam Chomsky, I just think he's a communist, are in shambles after learning the two were in close contact until around 2017, while tech luminaries from Gates to the Google co-founders were similarly caught schmoozing with the disgraced financier. Crypto bros are no exception. After the Department of Justice released 3 million files over the weekend, blockchain enthusiasts were quick to discover a certain Jeffrey Epstein was an active and prominent figure in crypto during its formative years. He was basically at the epicenter, putting things together on the financial side, regulatory side, and getting the biggest backers together. So one file highlighted by crypto investor Patrick Riley shows an email chain between Epstein and Joi Ito, the former head of MIT's Media Lab, whose digital currency initiative played an integral role in helping crypto grow into the giant that it is today. That's what I was just talking about. As the email exchange makes clear, Epstein's backing was a key pillar in establishing the DGI. He was the guy that brought together all the money and the tech people, and they came up with this scheme, really. FYI, Ito told Epstein, he used the gift funds to underwrite that which allowed us to move forward and quickly win this round. Thanks. At the same time the letter was written, there are about 12,000 commits to Bitcoin's code, Riley said on social media. He said, today there are 47,583 commits to Bitcoin code. That means that 75% of Bitcoin core development and code was committed after Jeffrey Epstein took over the de facto senior management role as benefactor. And again, they need to stop focusing on the coding. It's not the coding. It's the financial networks. It's the political networks. It's the schmoozing and whatever else they did. That shows how these people manipulate everything. So a crypto account called Crypto Bitlord agonized and said, we basically funded the entire global pedophile ring since 2015. I feel sick. And the people who support Trump need to look at his handprints all over everything, even to the crypto side of it. So again, funding, wargaming pandemics with Bill Gates, that's what Epstein was doing, and talking about how, we need to figure out how we're going to get these so-called charitable foundations to be able to funnel money over to us. That's the key thing we got to do. Nobody's really talking to Bill Gates about that. Again, they'll talk about the salacious stuff. What did he do at the island? Did he get a sexually transmitted disease? Did he really try to surreptitiously treat his wife so she wouldn't know that he got a sexually transmitted disease? All that kind of stuff. But what it's showing is that Bill Gates' charitable foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, was a fraud. It always was about profit. Remember, Bill Gates would say, I don't know why people hate me so much. I'm just trying to help people with health. I'm trying to get them vaccines and medical treatment and all the rest of this stuff. It's a charitable foundation. I'm not making any money from it. Look at the Epstein emails. How do we turn that into a way to funnel money into us from these charitable organizations? That's the big fraud at the core of everything that Jeffrey Epstein does. Another crypto account lamented that Bitcoin's been funding a global elite pedophile group since 2015. Great. The email chain from Ito also suggests that Bitcoin's mysterious developer, the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, may have in fact been 5 core developers, each of whom was in talks with Epstein. And again, John McAfee figured that out a long time ago. One of the core devs may have been early Bitcoin contributor Adam Back, who invented the proof of work algorithm cited by Nakamoto's original white paper on crypto. A separate email chain shows that Ito suggesting the convicted sex criminal meet with Back and other tech luminaries to discuss this revolutionary new currency. I think we should have a meeting with Jeremy Rubin, Adam Back, Seth Lloyd, Martin Nowick, you, and a few others soon about money and the future of finance, a 2015 email. Adam Back had sought a meeting with Epstein to secure funding for his crypto company, Blockstream. Back, along with Blockstream's CEO, Austin Hill, is trying to schedule a trip to meet Epstein in St. Thomas. That's what I was just telling you about. So, again, you'll need to fly to St. Thomas. Just let me know the time, and I'm looking forward to it, replied Jeffrey Epstein. So if Bitcoin keeps tanking, says an article on Futurism. It could cause a death spiral for the entire economy. And so, we got these two things that have been really pump and dump. Isn't it interesting how Trump has sat astride of both of these and profited from both of these with connections? He has funneled so much money into his administration. We've never seen such open, naked corruption as we have with Donald Trump. So, major cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, has had absolutely horrible start to this year. The digital token has plummeted almost 14% so far in 2026, and almost 40% since hitting an all-time high of well over $120,000 in October. This is its longest losing streak since 2018. It's down almost 3% the day they wrote this. It's a wake-up call to anyone who made a major investment in crypto. And it may have something to do with some people pointing out with the things that happened over the weekend with gold. Trump has enriched himself enormously with a series of crypto-related business moves. And again, this is not just limited to crypto. Michael Burry, the guy that a big part of the movie The Big Short and the book is about, the man who famously shorted the U.S. housing market before its collapse in 2008, he's got a nose for these types of financial scams. He says Burry says it could be a sign of an impending disaster. In a Substack post this week, he warned that further losses for Bitcoin could put major strain on the balance sheet of investors that indexed into crypto, leading to further sell-offs and a death spiral that could be difficult to recover from. And so when you look at this, massive amounts of money moving in and out, and were they getting money out of crypto and putting it into gold? Well, it appears that some of that at least was happening. Well, that was happening with the biggest investors. And then were they having to sell some of that gold in order to cover some positions that they were losing? Who knows? Anyway, that's kind of what Michael Burry thinks. Recent corrections in gold and silver prices after year-long rallies could be connected to Bitcoin woes. The U.S. dollar reached a 4-year low earlier this year as investors look abroad for safer bets. The Trump regime. Shaky monetary policy has made foreign investments, particularly in Europe, far more tempting. All of that uncertainty has caused the value of gold to make major monetary leaps. And we've been talking about this forever. No need to get back into that. Meanwhile, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are tanking. In case the nose-diving cryptocurrency were to drop below 70,000, Burry warned that the financial industry could incur heavy losses. Below 50,000, miners could be forced to close up shop, accompanied by a catastrophic sell-off for precious metals like gold. He said,
think Jeffrey Epstein was interested in Bitcoin because he heard they were talking about miners. He was just very confused about the whole entire endeavor.
Yeah, I think he can tell the difference, actually. That's good. Anyway, here's the key thing. Tokenized metals. What we've always talked, Tony and I have always talked about, paper gold, paper silver. Beware of that. And look at this, the scammers out there, like Larry Fink, who made his fortune off of this real estate housing scam, the securitized mortgages and so forth. These guys are just like Jeffrey Epstein. They're constantly coming up with these schemes, these lies to fleece everybody. And now Larry Fink, who is the interim president of the World Economic Forum, taking Klaus Schwab's place this year, all he wants to talk about is tokenization. And he wants to tokenize everything. And so when you look at paper gold and paper silver, that is tokenized gold and tokenized silver. And as he's saying here, tokenized metal futures will collapse into a black hole with no buyer. It says physical metals may break from the trend on safe haven demand. If you don't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. Burry's bearish stance, predicting a major death spiral, he has a long record of criticizing cryptocurrencies for being worthless and comparing them to the tulip bulb crisis of the 1600s. Following his famous shorting of the 2008 housing crisis, the hedge fund manager has also made plenty of wrong calls, however, over the years. But given the massive investments, well over 150 public companies have made in Bitcoin, the token's recent downturn could indeed foreshadow difficult days ahead of investors desperately trying to cut their losses. Which then brings us, and I'll say this before we get Tony on, which brings us to AI. Another headline, investors dumping American stocks as the country bets everything on AI. Dumping everything else, dumping all other stocks and bonds and equities so they can get their money onto AI, that other bubble. So which bubble is going to bust first? Is it going to be the Bitcoin bubble? Is it going to be the AI bubble? So again, you still have people out there, maybe they'll sell their Bitcoin and buy NVIDIA, jump from one bubble to the next, hoping these bubbles aren't going to break. But what they're doing really is they're arranging they're playing musical chairs on the deck of the Titanic, really. The AI boom has sent tech company valuations soaring. The Magnificent Seven, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, NVIDIA, and Tesla, now account for just over a third of the entire S&P 500. Experts warning that the industry could be propping up a rough-looking U.S. economy. So things are not looking too good except for just those few. And they're getting very, very heavily into debt, many of them, for these AI data centers. As Bloomberg and some other bankers have talked about, they said they're buying up all the credit out there. They're buying up junk credit out there just so that they can fund these AI data centers. They're getting desperate. And even these big guys are pouring so much money into it that they're soaking up all the credit that's out there, even junky stuff. And as they pointed out, that they're not even talking about making money anymore. The making money aspect of this is so far down the road. This whole thing is looking unbelievably shaky. The IMF warned that weakening hype surrounding AI could be among the biggest risks to global economic growth, noting that if the expectations about AI turn out to be too optimistic, a market correction could send shockwaves across global markets. That's what always happens. You get a new technology, like the internet, the dot-com bust. People don't know really how it's going to shake out, but they know this is going to be really big. It's going to change a lot of things fundamentally. They're not exactly sure where the money is going to be coming from yet, but everybody wants to jump into it because it's the latest thing and it's going to be some very disruptive thing. It's going to be huge. But then after a while, and the money is not coming back out, maybe they start to have second thoughts and they aren't sure how they're going to monetize this new thing. And people start running for the exits. And so it's going to go the same way. Trump, a huge AI booster, and of course a crypto huckster as well, is underlining the circular nature of the whole situation. Celebrated the weakening dollar, arguing that it would make products more affordable. Officials had to step in to smooth things over, the New York Times reported, arguing that despite Trump's comments, the U.S. government still wants a strong dollar. Well, historically safer bets like gold are proving far more lucrative, reaching record highs in January alone. And so even though we had this big sell-off, gold is still up an amazing amount month over month, just in the first month of January, even with that sell-off. And year over year, it's up over 70%. And so, again, the question is, are these tech companies showing signs of distress? Are they running out of money, running out of places where they can go to get loans? Bank of America, managing head of global credit, says you've got to turn over all the avenues to make this work. They're going out getting junk debt, private credit, asset-backed loans, increasingly desperate moves, says Bloomberg. And so this bubble is starting to get toward the end here, I think. Many AI companies have essentially given up on even pretending their short-term or medium-term goal is to make money. They are measuring ambition, not success. So it's a very shaky situation that we're in. So we're going to get Tony on to talk about this. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Stay with us.
analyzing the globalists' next move. And now, the David Knight Show.
All right, joining us now is Tony Artman of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. And, of course, you can get to Tony through davidknight.gold. Let them know that you came through us. Thank you for joining us, Tony. It's been another interesting week, hasn't it, with gold and silver?
Interesting week. Yeah, when I got off air with you last week at this time, gold was trading around 5,500, 5,600 an ounce. And then the next day I woke up and I set prices and I started to see just the red on the screen. And the same thing with silver. It went from like $110 an ounce down to 70 something.
Yeah, it went down about 30% or something. Yeah.
Gold dropped almost $1,000 an ounce and then bounced back. So yeah, at the top it was 5,700 that's last week, and then down to 4,700 or so, and that happened in a 24-hour period. So yeah, we survived. Wise Wolf survived the largest downturn of gold and silver in history in a flash like that. So
wow. I don't envy you. I don't know how you do it, because I tell you, this is, this is absolutely crazy. The big swings that are going back and forth. What do you think? I mean, some people have said that they think that, of course, a lot of people are getting out of Bitcoin, perhaps getting into gold. Maybe these guys are then selling off gold because they got to cover short positions that are starting to drop. What do you think was going on behind that?
Well, I think it's a lot of factors. The Warsh nomination carried a certain psychological weight to it. A lot of people went back to his previous remarks about a strong dollar and his support of things like Bitcoin and other things. And there was this feeling that, oh, well, the dollar is going to be strengthened. That was at least some of the press release that was out. But if you're following any of this or paying attention, the Trump administration and Trump himself has talked about the need for a weak dollar. The whole premise of everything, that if there is a strategy here at all, the strategy is just a weak dollar. And the berating of Jerome Powell for not lowering rates over the last year. Yeah. I mean, you think that the new nominee is not going to just lower rates? I mean, that's where we're going. We're going to lower rates. We're going to print. We're going to expand the money supply. That's the entire system is built off of that. So I thought that was a false narrative that was launched. That pulled the price down a bit. But honestly, I think the system itself can't handle these prices the way that they are, David. I'm seeing it on my level. The wholesalers are now not even locking trades anymore. You can't get liquid for 7 to 10 days. It's a 3 to 4 week window to get paid out at wholesalers. The whole system is cracking because everybody's trying to sell it at once. And of course, there are buyers. The average buying from central banks of gold alone last year was 27 tons a month. 27 tons a month in the year of 2025. Oh. So no, none of the demand is going away. All the fundamentals are there. All the demand is there, but it's bottlenecked, and the prices are inviting, the speculation to sell and to trade and the whole thing. Even the London Exchange last week, quote unquote, air quotes, they shut down because there was an internet issue or something. They just shut down because these prices, you're swinging all over the place. It can put you out of business. Yeah. And I think the stress on the market is definitely showing up, but the prices will go back above 5,000 in gold for sure. $100 an ounce silver. We finally broke the paper market is breaking. Yeah. And so there's a lot of factors here. And again, when people feel like, oh, well, it's the dollar's fine. Like that's the sentiment from like the Wall Street, the people that watch CNBC. They're like, oh, well, the dollar's going to be fine because now everything's going to come out in the wash. We're going to put everything through the wash. It's going to be fine, and it's not. So they may sell off positions in paper or do something and do profit taking in gold or silver, and then get into what AI stocks. Or I heard the last segment that you were bringing in the show.
And, where do they go?
Where do you go? And we can talk Bitcoin and other things. I think there's just a lot happening right now that are not normal market conditions, and I'm just happy to be here and still survive it. It's
congratulations.
Keeps me on my toes.
That's crazy. Well, I've been saying that wait till Trump does his pick. Now he picked somebody that I think is, Warsh. I think is going to be a whitewash of what he really wants to do, right? But we've seen Trump do this kind of stuff before. Oh, look, he's got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Now we're really going to see the FBI get honest. Really?
Right.
So you think that anybody that thinks that Kevin Warsh is going to be honest with this stuff, you think that he's not going to do exactly what Trump wants done. You haven't been paying attention to Trump or anything else.
Trump even joked, he's, I'll file a lawsuit if he doesn't lower interest rates. He even joked about it already.
That's right. He's going to lower interest rates and also probably do quantitative easing as well. If Trump wants easy money.
This is the big print. I mean, and the book by Larry Lepard, he put this thesis out a couple of years ago. It's the big print. And it's one big massive push before they reset the whole monetary system. And I think that's what we're being primed for right now. As I was saying to you off air, these little signposts on the road, if you're paying attention, Tether has $187 billion market cap. Now, what does Tether do? Right? Tether, if you want to hold a digital dollar, it's tethered to the dollar.
Yeah.
You put in the system and they go buy treasuries or they'll buy gold or do something. It backs whatever 1-to-1 that you do. And they've had huge, they buy gold like a central bank now. They have Bitcoin holdings.
Yeah.
So just that one stable coin, $187 billion market cap.
And again, stable coin is, I think, it's like the masked ICE agents or something. Right? This is the mask that pretends that it's not CBDC, but it is CBDC. Right. It's got all the characteristics of CBDC. They made sure it had it, but it is Larry Lutnick, also a friend and pal, long term, post pedophile conviction even. Larry Lutnick, a big pal of Jeffrey Epstein, and Tether is his baby. And he's now our Commerce Secretary. We look at this. We got a Treasury Secretary who is a Soros's right-hand man. We've got Larry Lutnick, who has been Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand man and working on the Tether coin and the stable coins and stuff like that, which they want to move us into. The previous Commerce Secretary that you had from the Trump administration was Wilbur Ross, who was a Rothschild agent all of his life. Does anybody get a clue as to what's going on with the Trump regime? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
One of my favorite memes in the last few years is just it shows the Earth and there's a arrow pointing towards it and it says, "You are here paying taxes to pedophiles." And it's like, it's just if you want to know where you are. And
That's right.
I always thought that was fun. But yeah, when you dig deep enough and you find the roots of all these things, it's why people have always been, you should be skeptical of anything that gold's manipulated, silver's manipulated. Bitcoin, maybe not its origin, but somewhere along the way, and maybe for nefarious purposes, things have happened to Bitcoin or steered a certain way. That's certainly a potentiality. And I see the interconnectedness all of. There's no white knight in any of this. But at the end of the day, we're in a monetary shift, historically the life which has never been seen. We've never actually gone through what we're going through now. There's no other historical precedent that's been set, to see a world reserve currency diminish the way that it is, like the dollar's doing, and this monetary reset happening with all the other countries banding together and gold reclaiming its place at the same time. It's I think a race to figure out where value is. So everything's being repriced and sold off and bought off, and I think even manipulated for reasons for accumulation. So
I
agree.
Can
certainly get into that.
And then, the reason we focus on physical possession of gold and silver is because you got these people like Epstein and Larry Fink and the rest of them who are always coming up with these devices to try to take everything from everybody. And that's the fundamental part of the great taking. How they have gone through and changed the UCC definitions and the hierarchy of, if there's a major financial collapse, the hierarchy of who gets to keep what. And it turns out that if you think you own a stock or a bond, you're way down the list. The brokers are going to get paid. The bankers are going to get paid. You're probably not going to get paid because you're further down the list if there is a great financial crisis that they have engineered. And so that's what's really behind all this stuff. That's why you got to get physical with things. And we've talked for the longest time about paper gold and paper silver, but again, they're pushing so hard on tokenizing and securitizing everything. And it's just the 2008 mortgage crisis on steroids. They take real things like real estate and houses, and they put it into this kind of artificial construct that they've created so they can manipulate and steal things from people. It's just amazing. Got a couple of questions for you, Tony.
Sure.
Radis Bro, thank you for the tip. He says, for Tony, now that the mystery of Bitcoin is over, and I don't know that we know the mystery of it, but certainly we can see the structure, the organization, the funding, the political stuff that's there, and see how that was all kind of centered around Epstein and these elites that are focused around him. And I mean, it's not just that he's one of the elites and he's partying with them. I mean, he's putting this together with the guys that many people think actually were Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonym, a couple of guys who were developers. He's putting this stuff all together. Anyway, he says, so what do you think is going to happen to Bitcoin maxis? Will they sell and change their grift? Or will they keep the Bitcoin grift rolling so they don't get poor? What do you think is going to happen with that?
I don't think Bitcoin's going away. I think, honestly, I'm a bit agnostic on all of this. I looked through a lot of the stuff that dropped, and there's some people that I follow that I've seen analysis on as far as with the Epstein involvement. He was a donor to MIT, so he's donating to these departments where they were working on Bitcoin in its infancy, past the publishing of the white paper and the first transactions that were done like January 3rd when Bitcoin, January 3rd, 2009, when Bitcoin came online. And then, of course, you go back to the white paper came out on Halloween, actually, in October 2000.
That's kind of significant considering Epstein, all of his occultism and everything, is it?
They have, it's 1/3 and 10/31, and there's some other key dates in Bitcoin. You have the first pizza. They bought the pizza with it and everything else. But I don't think that Bitcoin is going away. I don't think it's going to completely tank or anything like that. I think, honestly, I'm wondering if there's some triangulation in all of this for more accumulation at a lower price. I mean, we've seen that it can easily hit 100,000. It'll go back. I think it'll be back above that sometime this year, maybe next year. But I think it has a story yet to tell. There's nothing like Bitcoin. So I don't know. That remains to be seen. I could be wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, and I've always said that about my stance with Bitcoin, because fundamentally, I think what Bitcoin has done, if it does nothing else, even if it goes to zero right now, even if it crashed and became worthless, it changed a lot of people's minds. The people that actually started to look into it and look into the reasons why, or supposedly the reasons why the entire network was put into place, and what the philosophy of Satoshi was, and what it was built for. This is after the 2008 crisis, and he started bailing out the banks too big to fail in jail and all that stuff. And that was an unprecedented government printing of currency, and that link between the central bank and the government, and all the rest that was happening to the money supply and the corruption. So I think Bitcoin changed minds. It definitely changed. It changed history. So we'll see what happens with it. I don't think it's going away, though.
Yeah. It's and of course, many people have talked about the hijacking of Bitcoin, how it started out as a replacement for currency and for money, but then they turned it into something like a commodity. And then you get the people like Epstein and Larry Fink and these guys, and it looks like they want to take a MacGuffin and securitize it, make it into a token. And so it is. I look at it and it's just like, no, there's just too many layers and too many people like the ones who brought us 2008 involved. It's a hard pass for me. Sure. Another question for you. February 27th is the start date for the deliveries of the March contract. I've seen videos where they claim there will be a default. Is this true, or is this AI-generated garbage? Does Tony think there will be a default of the COMEX, with March being a delivery month? What do you think?
I think it's unlikely that there will be some massive default across the board, and it may be right now. I mean, these large institutions, you have to remember, they've got much more sophisticated equipment to run simulations, and they've got intel and things, and they'll be moving stuff around to try to avoid anything like that. But it's possible, but I would put that as a very unlikely. There's so much garbage floating around about gold and silver right now. There's so many grifters on the people send me stuff all the time. I've seen people send me stuff like, hey, these dealers all over the country saying people are lined out their doors buying silver. And I'm like, really? Because I have 2 shops in 2 states. I don't see any. What are you talking about? And then they'll send me stuff about, did you see Trump is going to put silver as some sort of like securitized thing and put it into the strategic reserve, and all Americans must turn in their silver. I've seen so much stuff floating around so people can get clicks. But that might be one of those little drops, about the COMEX. You got to be careful of any of that stuff, or either doom or gloom, or if it's pie in the sky, and just kind of a middle road. The metals markets are insane, right now.
That's right.
But I don't think they're catastrophic, and I don't think we're going to have this massive plunge either way.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking at this and saying this is the end of paper stuff, because you've got the large exchanges are scrambling around for actual physical gold and physical silver.
Well, that's right. I mean, that game has been played so long, but now I think we're, like I've mentioned before, stepped out of the realm of where markets took us in the past, and we've entered into governmental financial warfare. This is between governments and large institutions. It's between militaries and their developmental arms and things of, strategic stockpiles and things for both metals, not just for the monetary side for gold, but the industrial side for silver. So we've crossed a boundary that is no longer about just market forces.
Yeah.
So we're way beyond that.
That's right. Yeah. So, when we look at the push to try to get everybody into stablecoins, I think that's going to be a big part of it as well. But again, the physical aspects. We've got a couple more questions here. Steve Ez says, we need to know, is Tony buying metals again? If so, why? And if not, why?
I never stopped. There was one, I paused on Friday of last week in the afternoon, just because I didn't know the prices kept coming down so fast. I couldn't lock prices. We're literally flying a little bit blind right now. I can't lock anywhere. I can't. So no wholesalers will lock my price. If I get one to lock it might take me a month to get paid. So there's going to have to be some changes. I'm just rolling with the punches. But no, Wise Wolf is still available to buy product. But I would ask people, why are you selling if you don't have to? I would wait. You're going to get a better premium. Let this market stabilize. The reason that dealers are having a hard time paying out near spot like we used to, I'd be happy to pay out near spot. It's a happier customer. The problem is that there's nowhere to sell it to. And if you try to sell it, like a lot of the places that used to get quick turnarounds, they're not liquid. So you can't get out. And so these, dealers are buying it 20, 30% under spot. And people are mad about that. Well, if you don't need to sell right now, don't, because what will happen is all that bottleneck will get worked out. All the contracts will be filled and everything will be fine again. And the premiums and the buying percentages will come up because the market will stabilize. So I think selling right now is a bad idea if you don't have to.
Yeah, I agree. Trump Burger, what are Tony's thoughts on the gold and silver ratio?
It's starting to correct into its natural territory. I've read about this for years. I think we've just had this weird upside down mismatch of what the gold silver ratio is supposed to be. History shows us it's between 10 to 20 to 1 is about the way that you should price gold and silver. That's the way history's always been. We were 16 to 1 at the founding of the United States up until 1933. It's estimated that it's 17 to 1 geologically. So there's 17 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. So there's a natural component. I think it's finding its new balance. And I think the paper market has always done this. it skewed the gold silver ratio so drastically that it was just ridiculous. At one time, it was 125 to 1.
Wow.
And that was at the first quarter of 2020. And at one time, and you couldn't buy silver for that price, by the way, because people were calling. I think it was $12 an ounce, and people were calling me saying, "I need to place an order for silver." I'm like, "There is none. I can't lock it anywhere because nobody wanted to sell at that price." So it's funny, you'd have a market saying this is the price, but there's literally no supply, and that's when I started going, wait a minute. So and that's the manipulation of the paper. Now it's just chaos everywhere. It's like you could have short supply and everybody wants to sell.
Yeah.
And so it's so upside down and all over the place. I think there's just, the main reason is because we're seeing like the rapid decline of the dollar and these other nations moving out of the currency into something else.
Yeah. As I said, the beginning of this week, after I had the big sell off over the weekend, I said, this is another Yukon Cornelius buying moment because the fundamentals haven't really changed.
Nothing.
Markets will panic and, everybody will get wind of something and they'll go run, chase it. And I remember there was, we bought a dog for my aunt once and we, because she loved dogs, but she just wouldn't make the leap to do it. And we knew which kind of dog she liked. And so we went to the breeder and they had a whole bunch of these dogs. It was like 10 or 15 of them or something, and they're like little Scottish Cairn Terriers, I think is what it was. And they'd come around, and they were all kind of feisty. And there'd be one of them would think that he heard something in the corner of the yard, and he'd go barking and running that way, and the rest of them would just follow him like a mob. They go run and they all go over there bark, and then they realize there's nothing there. And then one of them thinks there's something in the other corner of the yard, and they all go running. They're just going back and forth. And I said, this is like the stock exchange here. This is one person thinks they see something, they all go run for the exits, or they all go run to jump on board whatever this thing is, and then they start chasing the next new false signal that's out there. So there's a lot of volatility that's going on here, but the fundamentals are still the fundamentals. The things that have fundamentally been driving this over and above any kinds of market manipulations, those things are still there. The stuff that you and I have talked about for the longest time, the financial system and the loss of trust in the U.S. dollar, the massive federal cumulative debt that Trump doesn't care or talk about at all, but he keeps stoking it more than anybody. And again, he set us on a whole new path of debt accumulation in 2020. Biden kept that same rate up, and so has Trump. He added another $2 trillion last year. We're going to be up to $40 trillion by the fall at the current rate, but I think he's probably going to have some new big spending programs that are going to happen before then. And so, again, that's one of the reasons why he is so focused on the interest rates, because the service charges on that debt are so crushing, and it's going to wind up taking such a huge chunk of the entire federal deficit. But something's got to break. It's not based on reality. And so I think that's the key thing. And the other key thing to think about is how these people have manipulated these investment structures. Stocks and bonds have been manipulated. And I'm not talking about them orchestrating a buy or a sell to move the market in different ways. I'm talking about how they have gone through and changed the UCC code so that when they create a giant crash like they did back in 2008, they can go in and take the title to your securities and your stocks and things like that, and how they don't want to just stop there. They want to tokenize everything so they can do that to everything. That's the key thing. That's why physical is so important, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. And it becomes more and more apparent that counterparty risk is a risk that you don't want to take.
That's
it
right.
needs to be a very small portion of whatever you do. I mean, just for the sake of transparency, every day I use Cash App and I buy a little bit of stocks, we're talking like a tiny bit, like lunch money. I'll not go out to lunch that day, and I'll pay for, whatever stocks I buy, and I'll buy some petroleum stocks. I know great friend of mine that I grew up with. I know the company he's an executive for, so I trust that company is going to find some oil, and so I buy a little bit of that and some silver mining stocks. But we're talking like nothing. Over time, it can compound, but I'm doing that with the full knowledge that I might not be able to cash those things in, or they can just inflate the amount of stock that they have. I mean, They literally can do that. That's just something that's always been the case. So you can get a little bit of a return on that, but where else do I put the majority of everything else that I do? It's either in my own business, something I can see, that I can hold, that I own, that are, that is in my possession. I want less counterparty risk, and it may not be as fun or as exciting or thrilling, and you may not get these big returns the way that you could get in the traditional markets. But I don't think that in this environment, with as many with as many crooks as I don't think it's unprecedented, or at least they're just not as smart as their predecessors to cover up their crimes and follies. And we just got a lot of crooks running stuff.
Oh man, they are when you look at the people like Epstein and Fink and so forth. I like this comment here, Tony. This is Mamak 1996. My unmarried daughters are buying metals so when they get married, they'll be able to stay home and homeschool their kids. Now, that's long-term thinking. That's a great idea. Yeah, and that's the way you need to be thinking, a buy and hold strategy, and just to prepare for a rainy day, because storm clouds are on the horizon. They really are, and have been for quite some time.
Well, they really are. And again, those fundamentals don't change. We can't stop the collapse of the system that is, I think, right. It's inevitable. We can't stop. Now, what's it going to look like? Does that mean it's Mad Max and it's the apocalypse or anything? I don't necessarily think it has to come to that. But there's so many scenarios on the table, and we can't control that outcome. You can control what you can control, like your ability to make good decisions based on the information, not what you want to believe. That's the hardest part about living in this environment. Yeah, because it's by design. I think the dichotomy is so stark, between the left-right paradigm and then people that fall into the Fox News camp or the MSNBC camp or whatever they are, MS Now, whatever it is now. It's become even, I think, more solidified, and that's really shocking. Because there's so much to understand about our current reality that just gets missed by the majority now. Because you have to pick a side, and what if both sides are wrong? That's where I think what we talk about. It's like the agenda is just to know the truth, and if I have the best information, I can make better decisions, not what I want to believe. It's just like I put Bitcoin on my logo, right, for Texas, and Bitcoin may crash out. It may be. I've always said this, and I'll write it to zero. It's fine. I can be wrong. But if I see information that changes my mind, I'll make a better decision. That's where I try to be as pliable as I can. And I'm definitely not a cultist around precious metals either. There's going to be drawbacks, and there's going to be downturns in any of these markets. We're living through crazy times. Think about this. It took 45 years for silver to break its all-time high. And then once it did, and this is just last year, and then once it did, because we'd always talk about it, this was the all-time high of silver. It's at 45 years, and then it hit, and it just broke, and then it just went off to the races. Yeah. So that, look, we never, and nobody predicted that, by the way. Like, not really. I mean, the people, like, in an abstract way would say, well, these are the prices, it'll reset at some time, but nobody's sitting there going, oh, and January of 2026, nobody.
Well, and that's the thing. Gerald Celente always says this as well. And that's what I like about you and Gerald. You don't let them put you in a box, because then they have got you boxed in, and they're going to take you in a certain direction to a certain thing. But as Gerald Celente says, I'm just talking about trends. He goes, this is what I see happening. I don't like it, but I'm not going to deny the reality of it because I don't like it. And that's the key thing. We look at this. I never had any love of gold or silver. I was never a coin collector or anything like that. But when you start seeing what is happening with the government and these other financial things, and you see all these scams on Wall Street, just one of them after the other, and huge scams where they lay these things out and work on them for decades, and then take everybody down. It's like, I just want to get away from these financialized sharks that are up on Wall Street and on at Jeffrey Epstein's island and all the rest of this stuff. I want to get away from these people, and that's why I look at something that I can physically hold and get away from these structures, get away from the banks as well. And so that's a key thing, I think.
I'm with you 100%, and obviously that's what I do. But
Yeah.
and I think it'll pay off, and then long it's maybe not as exciting about some other things, but it's yours, you know. And yeah, there's somebody. One of your listeners called me yesterday. I was on my way to the refiner in Dallas, and asked me about 90% U.S. silver. It's like, why would somebody buy that right now? I was like, well, for me, you're buying it at spot. I think it's one of the most underrated things because people got mad when they go to sell it. They're like, well, I'm not going to getting anywhere near the melt value of this silver. And I'm like, because everybody's trying to sell it once. If you would just stop doing that, if you hold on, it usually has a higher premium than everything else. And there was times we were seeing $10 disparities on price per face dollar in normal markets. Like, so if you had a face dollar is 10 dimes, 4 quarters, or 2 half dollars. And I remember thinking, wow, that's just a crazy premium, because we would sell stuff way below the premium. And I would see that all over, JM Bullion and APMEX and other places. And so this inversion that's happened where it's just so much hit the market, and then people are mad. They're like, well, that 90% didn't work out for me. It's because everybody is trying to sell it. If you just hold on, you'll actually have a better asset. And now is a great time to buy it, honestly. And that's what, by the way, that's what I did. So, because I know on a long enough timeline, that silver quarter or silver half dollar is going to go a long way,
Yeah.
So we're just pricing things in dollars. We're trained to do that. We grew up with it.
That's the thing about Zero Hedge. That's kind of their timeline. On a long enough timeline, there is zero hedge. In other words, we're all dead, right? And,
Right.
Which is coming from a site that's not known for its Christian perspective or anything. That's pretty good.
Well,
You can't hedge against some things, but what's that?
It's a quote from the movie Fight Club.
Oh, is it?
That's where
Okay.
they got that. That's why
that's why they
the
have
guy's name is Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge, because that's a quote. And on a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to zero.
That's where they got it.
It's based off actuary tables and insurance.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
never
right.
saw that movie. I guess I have to go back and see that movie for the cultural references.
I don't know if you'd like it. It's one of my.
Yeah, it didn't look like anything I'd want to see, but there's so many cultural references.
Cup of tea, David, but definitely one of my all-time favorites from my youth. So it's a Generation X movie for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Did you ever see it, Travis? He's nodding his head yes. So I guess I just get him to tell me about it, and I spare myself the time.
Yeah, you just get the cliff notes from Travis. I don't think I'd just sit down.
I could ask Grok to summarize it for me.
Oh.
He'll let it hallucinate a little bit, make it more interesting. I don't know. Yeah. Well, thank you, Tony. I got a quote here from Gard Goldsmith from earlier when we were talking about Bitcoin. He says, well, I know who invented gold and silver. He invented other elements as well.
That's true.
It's been around forever. That's absolutely true. Well, thank you so much. And it is a crazy environment, and I don't envy you at all. But hang in there. It's probably going to keep up for quite a while. So you're going to be able to give us all advice when the dollar steps into hyperinflation. You'll tell us a little bit about how you managed during the hyperinflation of silver and gold.
I just want to last. Just get there. I just want to endure it. So
that's right. So you're learning, you're getting some valuable training for when we all go into the situation where, you go into the grocery store and all of a sudden that loaf of bread has gone up while you're in the store, and then it goes up before you get out of the store again. So
I think it's closer than we think.
Thank you so much, Tony. Again, Tony Arterman, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. And a key thing, like he's talking about there, is the averaging of the costs of the dollar cost averaging by gradually accumulating things over a period of time, making it a savings program to start to get away from this corrupt system that we've got here. And try to get something that is going to be not as easily manipulated. They can manipulate it, but I think we're at the point right now where paper gold and silver is going to be exposed for the fraud that it is, for the derivative that it is. And I think that once that happens, that's going to take away some of their tools to manipulate gold and silver. I think that'll be a good thing. But anyway, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, and you can get to them through davidknight.gold. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Have a good day. We'll be right back, folks.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
All right, welcome back. And I would like to ask for prayer for Jason Barker's grandson, JJ, who is very sick right now. So please pray for JJ. And I think he's had an issue once before that we had prayer for. But let's pray for JJ, that God would heal him. And we're going to talk about what is behind so much of this Epstein stuff, folks. When you look at it, it is an ancient evil that is there. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the Great Taking. There's an excellent article by Alex Newman, which was summarizing what David Webb has put together. And, of course, David Webb did a book about that. And he's done an interview with him as well. Alex Newman writes, when the globalist World Economic Forum predicted in 2015, you'll own nothing and be happy by 2030, people worldwide recoiled in horror at the thought. But almost nobody understood the mechanism by which it might take place. Now, thanks to brave whistleblowers and attorneys, the plan to seize virtually everything is plain to see. The real question at this point is, can it be stopped? And, it's interesting, too, because we've had, it didn't get a lot of publicity, but Elon Musk has talked about this many times as well. The world's richest man, the richest man in history, who is saying, well, money isn't going to mean anything. Well, why is he working so hard to accumulate more of it? And he's been talking about universal basic income. Basically, we don't own anything. We just get some kind of a stipend from the government. He's been one of the key pushers of that. If you remember when Andrew Yang ran for president back in 2020, that was his only issue that he was pushing was universal basic income. And at that point in time, Elon Musk gave him over $1 million. I think $1 million is what he gave him, but he was anxious to push that issue. And that is really where he's coming from with his technocracy and his transhumanism and all the rest of this stuff. But it is something that is much deeper than that. If the World Economic Forum's Great Reset is the marketing campaign for global transformation, as they say, what retired investment banker David Webb calls the Great Taking is a legal and financial machinery designed to make the transformation unavoidable. Ending private property rights in securities, in stocks, bonds, and other financial instruments, in order to allow megabanks allied with governments to take everything when the next crisis hits. In essence, you no longer own your securities. The deed has already been done. The stocks and bonds in your retirement and investment accounts may seem like they're yours, but thanks to little-noticed changes in state law going back decades, and they prepare this stuff for decades, folks, they actually are not yours. And when a major economic financial cataclysm strikes, the deep state establishment and the governments and the mega banks that it control will take over everything from you. This is what we're talking about with the Great Taking. Imagine ownership and control of every publicly traded company in the hands of a tiny megalomaniacal elite. This is the plan, not just for the United States, but for the world. So David Webb blew the whistle on this scheme that for centuries, stocks and bonds were treated as personal property, which insulated the public from failures inside of the financial system. So for hundreds of years, the securities were your property. If the banker or the custodian failed, that was their problem. Historically, the investor might simply tell those holding the securities, here's where you send my stuff. But that bulletproof protection is now gone. I would use the analogy of physical gold and silver that you have versus the paper gold and silver. You're buying into when you buy into that, you're not actually buying a tenth of an ounce, for example. That's the increments in which they sell it. You're not buying a tenth of an ounce of gold or silver. What you're buying is shares in their venture. And if their venture goes down, you don't get your gold or silver out of that. And that's basically what they have done. And they've done it by going around state by state, changing the UCC codes in a very surreptitious way. And if you remember, we caught on to that when they were trying to do it with CBDC. Remember, they went around to several different states. The first people to blow the whistle on it were in South Dakota. You have some legislators who are on top of that there. They said they're trying to set this up so that CBDCs are going to be mandated as legal currency. So people said, stop, we're not going to let that happen. And then if you remember DeSantis, and again, he's got his faults for sure. He doesn't support free speech. He goes to Israel to sign a censorship bill in Israel, of all things. What What is that about? Does he even care about the optics? However, he knew about CBDC, and the people, he and the Republicans in Florida did change the UCC, and they explicitly excluded CBDC, said it will not be used as legal tender. And so there's a lot that can be done there within the Universal Commercial Code, the UCC, that defines how transactions are made. It defines how property transfers are done and all the rest of the stuff. So they can do a lot of stuff there that people don't really understand or see. That's not visible. And they've been doing this now for several decades, quietly. So he said, what investors possess now is not ownership, but a legal abstraction. You no longer have a property right. You have what they have retermed as a security entitlement. Notice how similar this is to what happened to the real estate crash, right? They would take the mortgages and essentially put them in a blender and, grind them all up. And so you got this derived thing. That's why they call it a derivative. You got this derived value that was a cluster of mortgages. So when you invested in these real estate investments, you were not getting a particular mortgage. You're getting a little piece of this one, a little piece of that one, and it was indistinguishable. That's a big part of what the problem was. And so this is the same type of thing. We're going to give you, you're not going to get the stock or the bond or the financial instrument. We're going to give you something like a pointer to it, right? And they can just remove that pointer. That's what we talk about in programming. But after all, you can still call your broker. You can put a sell order in and you can get your cash. But when a big crisis hits, and many experts and economists believe it could be just around the corner. Is it going to be AI crash? Is it going to be Bitcoin? Is it going to be all the above? The significance of this change will be clear. The concept was first embedded into American law through amendments that were adopted across the states beginning in 1994. And what was happening in 1994? The Clinton administration was very busy changing the foundation of our financial system, very busy. And we've talked about this many times before with Gerald Celente, the fact that banks were state chartered. They didn't have them operating in multiple states at the time. And the Clinton administration changed that. And at the same time, you had Bank of America, which was headquartered in California. It was a California bank. And they were operating within California. And you had Nations Bank, which was operating in North Carolina. And they wanted the two of them to merge. And so the combination of saying we can now have banks that can operate across state lines and not be confined to just a state, that and the fact that you had these two very large banks that were going to merge, and everybody said, you're going to wind up with defensive mergers of all the bigger banks, and you're going to wind up with just a half dozen gigantic banks. And that's exactly what happened. Within about 10 years, we had the too big to fail banks and the real estate investment stuff, just like this is security entitlement, the derivatives. All that stuff came home to roost in the real estate crisis. But this security entitlement thing that they set up in 1994, that has been propagating through one state after the other. And it was done in order to strip Americans of their property rights to their securities. A lot of people didn't notice the minor changes to commercial and contract law that were done to strip you of your title to the things that you actually own. This is the kind of stuff that you get from people like Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Fink. If the intermediary fails, you have no right to take your property back, said David Webb. Attorney Don Grande, founder of True North Public Policy, one of the principal leaders working with state legislators to reverse the change, puts the mechanism in sharper legal terms. He said the foundation of the plan that he says is state law, specifically the UCC code. And this, again, like I said, this is where they tried to sneak in the CBDC. And I think it's also interesting to realize just how important it is to get these things done. And you can get this is why we have a little bit of hope to fix this, a little bit of hope, because it's at the state level. And you can find some good state legislators. We had one with Frank Nicely. Unfortunately, he's gone. And but there's a couple others like that here in Tennessee, and there are some in some other states as well. What the difficulty is that within the broader context, once the system realizes what one of these legislators are going to do, They isolate them. They send their bills to committee and kill the bills. And so it's not easy, even if you've got good people in place. But it's not impossible, as if it were in Washington, if this is coming directly from Washington. But they've gone in at each and every state level, which still gives us something of a theoretical opportunity here. UCC Article 8 is written to sound like ownership remains intact, but it contains two exceptions that give banks priority in the event of insolvency of a broker or a custodian. In a crisis, these exceptions control the outcomes. The schemes have already been tested in court as well. An individual buys a stock through a broker, believes that he owns it, but instead of the genuine ownership, what they get is a security entitlement. The legal term now embedded into state law. That security entitlement entitles one to control over the security until you don't have it anymore. The broker routes custody upward through layers, layers of lawyers, through layers until the asset sits at the apex of the system with a shadowy outfit called the Depository Trust Company and its designated agents, the DTC. If a broker, custodian, or clearing structure fails, priority now shifts. The first exception gives banks that lend to brokers or custodians priority over the investor. The second gives lenders to clearing corporations priority over the investor in the event of insolvency. And folks, if you got a big crisis, you don't need to be too far down on the priority list of creditors to not get anything at all. That's the way this is going to operate, especially when the creditors ahead of you are crooks, as these guys are. Like a big deal as long as the economy is dealing. It doesn't seem like it, right? But routine market gains and losses, and you can buy and sell. But in the event of a systemic failure and a cascade of insolvencies, and we're looking at a lot of different things that can cause that to happen. You know, the AI bubble, the Bitcoin bubble, a lot of different things like that. And these people who are invested in these things, many of them have done it on large margin calls as well. So those seemingly obscure rules governing legal priority would be triggered. And saving the government-backed mega banks will be the priority, and it'll take priority over your retirement. David Webb summarizes the reality bluntly. He says the investor is always vulnerable to the insolvency of the intermediary and has no rights to take back their property. You talk about counterparty risk. This is counterparty risk on steroids, folks. The beneficiaries are predictable. The deep state money men, the banks that own the Depository Trust Company. Those banks are JP Morgan Chase and all of the too big to fail banks that were created by the regulatory changes that Clinton pushed through, and by allowing these mergers. They're the ones who created this. It goes back to the middle 1990s. They're the ones who are going to be able to suck up all of the securities of the individuals when the next crisis hits. The public is left with claims on leftovers, if anything remains. To cut through the complex legal and financial jargon, South Dakota Representative Julie Auck, the first lawmaker to file a bill to fix this situation in any state, offered an analogy. She said, imagine you take your car to a mechanic. The mechanic secretly uses your car as collateral. The mechanic goes broke and creditors seize what you thought was your car. I'll give you another example, because what we're talking about here is bankruptcy law. And we're talking about the priority of creditors. And we were a creditor when the person that we sold our business to went bankrupt. And so we know something about this firsthand. And one of the analogies, one of the cautionary tales that was told to us, it wasn't an analogy, it actually happened. You had a situation where you had a home builder who was suffering financial difficulty, and he started taking advance payments, and draws and stuff like that from various homeowners. And one homeowner was into it $20,000 with this guy, and he went bankrupt, and he gave him the money back. The builder did. Said, I can't do your home. It was just kind of a retainer that he had. So I can't do your home. Here's your, the money that you gave me to get started. I haven't done anything with it, so here's the money back. Well, the bankruptcy trustee went back and took that money back from the person because they said, well, that belonged to the business and he couldn't redistribute it. So that's the reality that you're looking at here. Just like you take your car to the mechanic and the car is sitting there at the mechanic's, and the auto mechanic goes bankrupt and the bankruptcy trustee comes in and takes your car because it was just there to get fixed. He says this analogy fits, but the reality is even worse because it is global and because it is hidden. It is a pawn operation that you never agreed to enter. Your property is being pawned. Think of it that way. You haven't given permission. Somebody else is taking your property and pawning it. And that's really what is happening. That's what these crooked financial schemers are doing. Securitized, just like the securitized mortgage fraud. The great taking is not merely financial, but it is political. This is not just about your IRA. This is about subjugation. It is a geopolitical strategy, essentially a hybrid war. The objective is not that the cartel needs your savings. They've already got all the money in the world for the most part, right? It's that you can't be allowed to have it because that gives you some means of independence. And let me just say, if you go back to the creation of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, which happened at the same time, was that not the purpose of that as well? They have been laying out this kind of strategy for over 100 years. We don't need an income tax to fund the government. The government, and I've got $40 trillion, I've got 40 trillion reasons to show you that the income tax is not necessary to what they do. They create money out of thin air. They have no intention of ever paying it back. They have no ability to ever pay that back. And so what is the purpose of the income tax? And why do they fight so hard against any kind of income tax reduction or elimination of the income tax? It's because they don't want you to have the money. You have the federal government that can just manufacture fiat currency out of thin air with no consequences. So why do they need our money? They don't. They just need to have you poor so that you are dependent on them, so that you can be controlled by them. That's exactly what he's talking about here. He said the reasons for this are geopolitical more than financial. These banks have so much money they couldn't spend it if they lived for 1,000 years. Same thing with people like Elon Musk. But they want to make sure that you don't have it. They don't need your 401k or your IRA. They just don't want you to have it. They want to take property so that we are essentially slaves. Strip the middle class of savings and collateral, and the solution becomes irresistible. David Webb names the endpoint too. He said it's going to be something like central bank digital currency and total control. And again, we think that we've stopped central bank digital currency here in America. No. Trump is just doing it more surreptitiously and deviously with Larry Lucknick and the stablecoin things. That's where they're going to go to. And they have made sure that for these stablecoin guys to be able to play, they have to have all the features that are going to allow them to freeze and seize your money and the stablecoins. So he says everything is under control. To avoid a bigger economic crisis, banks will be on holiday for a while, is what they're going to say. But now you can download an app and you'll have some CBDC currency or some stable coins on it. So you can continue shopping for needed essentials. Trust the government, everything will be fine. And then they'll start with the stimulus check type of stuff like Trump did. By the time the dust settles, all securities will be seized in order to prop up the system. The reaction when lawmakers attempt to restore basic property rights exposes the stakes. This legislator, the person who is trying to organize the state-by-state overturning of this in the UCC, his name is Grande, describes what he says the legislators face when they try to do this. He said they face something that's like the Twin Towers of Mordor, the bank lobby, and the Uniform Law Commission. Both of these outfits have dismissed concerns publicly while exerting pressure privately. Committee rooms fill with lobbyists, vague warnings of negative consequences appear, specifics evaporate when challenged. In an interview with Representative Ock, the one who was the first one to offer a bill to stop this and to overturn this in South Dakota, the New American, she described how, she had an interview with New American with Alex Newman, she described how her bill, crafted to protect investors' property rights from the great taking, was deliberately sent to a committee to die. After educating colleagues on the mechanics of the scheme and finding broad support, she said powerful forces worked behind the scenes to halt the effort. And of course, you see this happening in many state legislatures, probably all of them to a large degree. In the same way that you see Mike Johnson and the concentrated control in Congress as to what even gets to be voted on. They can make sure it never gets to the floor. The pattern matched what Webb and Grande shared with this writer, with Alex Newman. When the merits could not be defeated, procedure and pressure were used to kill reform quietly. Multiple lawmakers across multiple states have described similar scenarios in their own states as they sought to restore property ownership over securities. That response should tell Americans everything they need to know. Legitimate constitutional systems, statutes, and structures do not require silence, threats, or procedural burial to survive. Schemes built for looting and subjugating the public do. The incentives are now in place and very easy to see. For the global banking elites, crashing the system and seizing everything is now in their own best interest, especially as the instability of the Federal Reserve's fiat monetary system grows. So the objective is plainly neo-feudalism, updated for the digital age. Not the abolition of ownership by decree, but the conversion of ownership into a conditional entitlement, quote unquote, that is revocable when the oligarchy decides that the system, quote, needs what is yours. You will own nothing if these diabolical economic traps are not exposed and stopped at the state level. That's why you need to pay attention to your state politics and not be so obsessed with national politics, especially with one politician who shall be nameless. But we all know who he is. Gold and silver, again, when you look at the recovery, it didn't take very long for it to start to come back up. But there was an interview on Kitco with a guy whose name is Guistra, and he was talking about what happened with the 20% drop that happened over the weekend in gold and other things. He said the metal complex didn't just see a correction. It was a liquidity event, he said. It happened on a Friday. Asia was closed, and so there was no support. It was a Friday afternoon, and whoever had short positions on silver, especially, I'm sure, participated in that downward take position. In my opinion, it was a takedown. The sell-off was exacerbated by a swift tightening of trading conditions. Following the historic volatility, the CME Group raised margin requirements on gold and silver futures effective February the 2nd, Monday, and forcing leveraged traders to post significantly more collateral. Maintenance margins for speculative gold positions jumped to 8% from 6%, while silver margins saw a steeper hike to 15% from 11%. So again, they're doubling down on this. They were worried that people were buying too much stuff on margin, and they're still heavily marginalized if you look at that. For decades, the price of gold has been largely determined by futures contracts and derivatives, by the paper market. He argues that that era is now ending as a pricing power shifts to Eastern exchanges that require physical delivery. For the past 40, almost 50 years, the paper market has controlled the gold price. They've been able to manipulate it. And that was the first thing that gave me a clue. I didn't really understand what was going on. I naively thought I was buying 1/10 of an ounce of gold or silver when I bought into those. And I noticed that the price was not changing along with gold and silver. So I thought, what's going on with this? And then I realized that you're not actually buying gold and silver, and it's actually coming out of Shanghai. And it's like, I don't want my money shanghaied, so I got out of those things. He issued a blunt warning to investors relying on these ETFs rather than on bullion. He said, in a crisis, you better own physical gold. Paper gold won't cut it. If you don't own physical gold, you don't own gold. As I said before, it's a game of musical chairs. And these chairs that the Wall Street sharks and others have done are just virtual. They're not real. So you might have that headset on, that virtual reality headset, And it might look like everything around you is real. It might look like there's a chair behind you and you go to sit down on it. It's not there. That's the virtual reality that they've created for everybody. And they have surreptitiously removed real reality and put in this virtual reality for people in terms of the changing of the UCC code. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and when we come back, I want to talk about what is really the most important thing about the revelations of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Yes, we have seen how the people who control our world, the powers that be who are controlling our world in terms of humans, we have seen how unbelievably disgusting and corrupt they are. We've seen what vile, evil people they are. We've seen how they conspire together, but there's something else to see. And we'll talk about that when we come back.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to hear it in your pod. You'll owe nothing and be happy. Ain't got no cash, ain't got no car, but 24 booster shots in your arm. Oh, nothing. Be happy. You can't even buy shit in the store because of your low social credit score. Oh, nothing. Be happy. You'll own nothing and be happy. Be happy and eat the bugs.
All right, welcome back. Radis Bro commented, "Thank you for the tip. I appreciate that." He said, like the home loan scam, foreigners get a home on average in 3 years, while natural-born Americans can go 30 years with no home, no house. That's right. They decide who they're going to reward, who they're going to punish. Another aspect of the incentivization of the great replacement. But we're talking about the great taking as well. Let's look at this. This is an excellent op-ed piece, I think, from J.D. Hall. And when I saw this, I thought, I really haven't talked about it in this perspective, but I really should. It is the Christian response to documented evil. And that's really what we're looking at with the Epstein files. Again, this is J.D. Hall. He has a Substack that is Insight, that's INSIGHT, Insight 2, T-O, Insight, INCITE. He said, the Epstein files don't just document crimes, they document a religion. Do you understand that? It's got its own little temple there. It's got its own occultic symbols that are there. It's got the same kinds of rituals that we've seen throughout civilization history. All civilizations have had this type of stuff that we see with the Epstein elite. They've all done that, and they've all done it with their leadership. So he said, documents of religion. 3.5 million pages prove what the secular world can't and won't name, and the church won't acknowledge for the most part. Organized demon worship operating at the highest levels of the global power. Temple structures with Babylonian symbols. Allegations of ritualistic sacrifice. A transhumanist breeding program to create superior humans. FBI memos claiming Mossad blackmail operations. Victims treated as goyim, cattle for the offering. And through it all, the deafening silence of American evangelism, where the powerful serve ancient gods through modern mechanisms, when intelligence agencies protect the operation, when your theology won't let you investigate because of which nation might be implicated, you don't have discernment. You have idolatry. He said the media will tell you that the Epstein files document child trafficking. They're wrong. But they're not wrong, rather, but they're not right either. That's an incomplete take on all of this. What the 3.5 million pages actually document is something that is far older, far darker than a criminal enterprise. They document organized worship, not the worship of a person or even of an ideology, but the worship of depravity itself. The secular world has no category for this because they've spent centuries pretending that the spiritual realm doesn't exist. Well, fine. They're fair enough. They're pagans. They're operating on pagan assumptions. So when they see ritualistic abuse in temple structures that are adorned with ancient symbols, they just shrug and call it eccentric billionaire behavior. You can't blame a blind man for not seeing. But Christians don't have an excuse for this. We claim to believe in principalities and powers. We claim to believe in spiritual warfare. We claim to believe that demons are real, active, and strategic. So when 3.5 million pages land on our laps documenting systematic evil among the global elite, complete with temple structures, occult symbols, and allegations of ritual sacrifice, and also a transhumanist breeding program, that is about the revelations about the ranch that he had in New Mexico, the Zorro Ranch. And you've had a couple of individuals who say they were held captive and used for a breeding program, and they would take the babies away, and who knows what they would do with the babies. So anyway, he says it should be, and of course, the Christian response should be, of course this is happening. Of course evil is going to concentrate at the top. Of course the old gods are still being worshipped. Well, the Epstein files aren't revealing anything new about the nature of evil. They're just proving what Scripture has already told us. The powers of darkness concentrate in high places with false religions. They demand blood sacrifice. And those who try to become gods always target the image of God and the most defenseless. So let's talk about what the Christian response should be. Not the response that we're getting from big evangelism, and what he means by that are the people who are the ones who have access to the media that everybody looks up to and respects and follows. They hang on the words that they say in terms of, big Christian radio and the ones who have Christian institutions and things like that. These are the guys who, for the most part, during the COVID thing, you could see where they were, which side they were on. He said, there's been radio silence, punctuated by nervous coughing. But the response that we should be giving, if we actually believed in our own theology, is not heard. So he says the concentration of extreme evil among the global elite isn't merely a function of opportunity. It is a function of spiritual reality. They distribute themselves, demons don't distribute themselves democratically across the human population like some kind of a hellish census, rather. They are strategic in what they do. They concentrate where earthly power concentrates because they want to rule the world through those who already do. And I think they also will reward those who will do what they want to be done. They will reward them with power, just as we saw with the temptation of Christ. Satan said to him, you see all these kingdoms? I'll give you all of that if you bow down and worship me. And that's how we get the Epsteins of the world, and the Gates of the world, and the Trumps of this world. This is why Epstein's network included royalty, presidents, prime ministers, intelligence operatives, tech titans, scientific elite, and Harvard professors. The pattern is not random. Demons don't waste their time possessing homeless people in Des Moines, no offense to Des Moines, but the principalities have bigger fish to fry. They target those who can shape nations, who can move markets, who can influence millions and protect each other from prosecution. And what happened on Epstein Island wasn't happening despite these people's power. It was happening because of their power. The principalities demanding tribute, and tribute was paid. And children, systematically, for decades, with cameras rolling for blackmail leverage. Evil is strategic. It is not egalitarian. And the Epstein files document the strategy in exhausting detail. That blue-striped temple on Little St. James wasn't decorative. Multiple victims described it in testimony. FBI documents reference occult ritualistic elements happening in it and beneath it. The secular media treats this like a billionaire's eccentric architectural taste, like Epstein really just vibed with ancient Mediterranean aesthetics. The temple architecture echoes Babylonian ziggurats, stepped pyramids dedicated to gods like Marduk and Ishtar, not metaphorical gods, not symbols of human psychological projection, but actual principalities that Scripture identifies as demons masquerading as deities. The symbols matter. owls connected to Lilith in Babylonian demonology, sundials indicating celestial worship, zodiac markings documented in FBI photos from inside the structure. These are not random rich guy quirks. They are religious icons. And the gods themselves have a pattern, very specific, very dark pattern. Ishtar, the goddess of sex, war, and fertility, whose temple rule featured Quad-Ishtu, sacred prostitutes whose rituals involved coercion and exploitation. Or Lama Shutu, a demoness who preyed specifically on children and infants, described in ancient texts as snatching babies from wombs and nursing them with poison. Moloch, who demanded child sacrifice, and of course this was a big thing with Israel, the surrounding nations that were there once they went in, the Canaanites. They got drawn into that. As a matter of fact, it was something that was a fact that went down into Carthage as well. And God eventually took revenge on Carthage. They had tremendous archaeological evidence of tremendous amounts of child sacrifice on the altars that were there at Carthage. And so this is something that has been well documented. And one day somebody will say, and one more thing, Carthage must be destroyed. That's what happens. God can also work through rulers. So Moloch demanded child sacrifice. Now look at the Epstein files actually allege. Children kept in stalls so that men could look at them like livestock offerings. Ritualistic abuse in temple-like structures, echoing sacred prostitution. Allegations of infant sacrifice and dismemberment. Moloch worship updated for the 21st century. Systematic torture documented in emails. In one video, I love the torture. Straight out of Nurgle's playbook. This isn't coincidence. It's not coherence. The acts match the ancient cultic practices of the very gods whose symbols adorned Epstein's properties. Scripture tells us that when people sacrifice to gods other than Yahweh, they are sacrificing to demons. The old gods of Mesopotamia didn't die. They didn't retire to some demonic Florida to spend their days playing shuffleboard. They're still receiving worship. They're still just outsourced to billionaires with private islands instead of to priests with temple complexes. Same principalities, and different property values. Call it what it is. Demon worship, industrial scale demon worship, with governmental protection. Intelligence agencies were involved, the powers of darkness operating through the powers that be. So Epstein's religion had a second component beyond the ancient gods, being a devotee of transhumanism, the belief that technology can elevate humanity beyond our God-designed limitations. And I've said this about transhumanism from the very beginning. It's based on the oldest lie that Eve bought into. You will become like God, and you will live forever. That's what these people believe. They literally believe they're going to become like God. They literally believe that they are creating gods that they call artificial intelligence. And they really do think that they're going to be able to use cryogenic things or something like that to live forever. And that's some of the stuff that came out in the Epstein files as well, things that he was working on. Genesis 3, the original lie, you can transcend your created nature and become divine. This is really, as he points out, you look at the Tower of Babel, and this has basically been recreated in terms of the internet, in terms of technology. Humanity has come together to be able to do pretty much anything. Epstein was involved in eugenics as well as Bitcoin and finances and all these other things as well. So he was also funding that type of thing. The media portrays this as an eccentric billionaire fantasy, as if Epstein was just some weird rich guy playing out science fiction scenarios because he could afford the props. Christians, however, should recognize what this actually is. It's an attempt to overthrow God's created order. Plans to impregnate up to 20 women simultaneously at the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. An obsession with seeding his genetics across the population because he believed that his DNA was superior. Surrounding himself with geneticists, AI researchers, evolutionary biologist, creating his own priestly caste of techno wizards. And I would say, when you look at Gates' program again, it's the utter contempt for everybody else. It's not only the fact that his genetics are superior and he needs to spread them as far and as wide as he can, so he's going to get a bunch of women, get them all pregnant at the same time. It's also about the masses of people out there they perceive as a threat, but as the demons behind them just want to kill humanity. But it is a threat to these guys, and so they want to eliminate the total number of people, reduce it. That's why you see all these things also tied into population reduction and all the lies about environmentalism, which is really nothing other than Gaia worship. They even called it the Gaia Project for quite some time. This is this pagan idea that the earth is actually this sentient being and that type of thing. Humans are virus, so we have to be eliminated. And so he and people like Bill Gates have been working on killing the rest of us while they propagate themselves. So $30 million was given to Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics by Jeffrey Epstein. Funding for OpenCog, which is an artificial general intelligence research, and cryonic plans to preserve his head and genitals for future revival, because apparently immortality requires specific anatomical priorities. I guess that's really the only two things he really cares about is his head and his genitals. But Epstein wasn't just trafficking children for sexual gratification, though that happened, and that was monstrous. He was trafficking them for breeding program that he designed to create a superior race that was seeded by his genetics. This is eugenics. This is Nephilim logic. This is Babel. And here's the thing about Babel that makes it relevant. God was not scared of humanity because their tower was tall. He scattered them because, as he said, nothing they proposed to do will now be impossible for them. The tower was dangerous not because of its height, but because of what unified humanity pursuing godhood could accomplish. And so that's really what we're seeing with all this stuff. Now that humanity has been unified, we have English has now become kind of the common language. Most people in tech fields can either, if they can't speak it, they can read it and understand it. And of course, tech has got its own language in many regards. It says Epstein's network represents the same threat, just reassembled with modern components. Global reach spanning multiple continents, unified purpose, the elite protecting each other through blackmail and institutional capture, technological capability, including AI, genetic engineering, cryonics, surveillance systems, governmental protection through intelligence agencies, and legal immunity. One language unites them all: wealth. The Babel reassembled, being rebuilt. The secular media will never frame it this way because they think transhumanism is just futurism. It's just optimistic nerds dreaming about living forever and merging with the machines. But scripture-literate Christians should recognize the pattern immediately. Every attempt to transcend God-designed humanity, whether through eating forbidden fruit, or mating with demons, or building towers, or breeding superior genetics, ends the same way. God comes down and destroys it. Not because he's threatened, but because humans don't get to become gods, no matter how many scientists they hire or how many children they sacrifice to the project. So what should the Christian response be to this? Documenting evil at the highest level of global power, complete with temple worship, demon god symbolism, and ritualistic abuse, and a transhumanist breeding program? Well, here's what the big evangelicals have offered so far. Silence. Not thoughtful silence, not strategic silence, not as if we're investigating this before we speak silence, just silence. The kind of silence that happens when institutions realize that speaking would cost them something that they're not willing to pay. And it's been a real problem for me to see how these Christian publications and news sites are so exclusively focused on the FACE Act. We need to use the FACE Act against Don Lemon. That's why I read that op-ed piece from Matt Trujillo, because he said, they have made this deal with the devil. We'll keep quiet at abortion centers, and we won't do prayer. We won't talk to people as they're going in the abortion clinics. We'll just let them go ahead and kill their babies, as long as, because the other side of the FACE Act, which I never really understood before this happened with Don Lemon, the other side of that act was to say, and we will keep them out of your church services. I looked at that deal with the devil, and I thought, how bad is that? We're going to let people murder and rip babies apart and not say anything to them, as long as they don't come in and say anything at our church services. So what are your church services for? What are you really worshiping? Are you worshiping success and wealth like everybody else? And that's what I see over and over again. This is the deal with the devil that they made at the very beginning. This was always sold, and it was actually in the title, protecting access to the clinics and that type of thing. But it was also to keep people out of churches, to make sure they didn't bother them and get in the way. And so the Gospel Coalition has not issued a statement, he said. The Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission is apparently busy with other priorities. The Southern Baptist Convention Executive Committee has better things to do. The PCA General Assembly must have missed the memo. The same institutions that produce white papers on critical race theory, lengthy responses to pronoun debates, coordinated campaigns against Disney movies, and emergency statements when a Christian celebrity says something vaguely troubling about hell. That's their priorities. And of course, it's not to say that we shouldn't talk about those things, but that's all they talk about. 3.5 million pages documenting industrial-scale child trafficking by global elites, complete with governmental protection, intelligence agency involvement, and allegations of ritual sacrifice and a eugenics breeding program. And apparently that is not something that the big institutional Christians want to comment on. Speaking costs something. It costs access. And this is what we've seen from people like Franklin Graham, people like Robert Jeffries. Robert Jeffries, who's, as this stuff is happening this week, I couldn't believe that you got people like Robert Jeffries and some people that we know from a church that we attended in Texas saying, well, I'm talking about how they went to see Melania. It's like, do you realize how evil the Trump people are? Do you realize how they're connected to all of this stuff? These people are connected with everything I've just been describing here. And you're going to go watch this ego trip, this payola from Jeff Bezos to the Trump family. Just unbelievable. And yet that's what they're focused on. And Robert Jeffries, of course, was pushing the vaccines and everything else for Donald Trump because he wanted access, respectability, a seat at the table with powerful people. That's what they're looking for. By the way, we're out of time here. I should mention, you still can send some stuff if you want to put in an AMA for me, ask me anything. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And if you want to put that on Rumble or send us an email at davidknightshow@protonmail.com, you can ask me anything, including about this if you want. I didn't quite get finished with it, but that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much. Have a good day. The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.